Morning everybody, I'm Colm Beckett. I'm a researcher from IT Carlow. Now, I've been working for the past 18 months or so on a research study entitled on the broad area of the financial supply chain, more specifically collaborative approaches to working capital management. So this morning, our working title is Evaluating the Potential for Collaborative Approaches to Working Capital Management to Strengthen Supply Chain Performance. Now, rather than just highlight some of the financial products out there at the moment and talk about the findings, I want to outline the research process as well. So I'm going to go through the background to the study and some of the academic literature associated with it. And I'll talk about our methodology for doing the study. I'm going to go through some of our findings and the early conclusions that we've drawn. So I don't know how familiar you all are with supply chain management, so I'll go through the basics very quickly. Well, supply chain management is said to be the management of three flows. They are materials flows, information flows and financial flows. There have been huge advancements over the last half century or so in the areas of materials flows and information flows. The collaboration among supply chain partners to improve those flows has led to major contributions to those advancements. So under materials flows, for example, reduction of inventory and elimination of waste has contributed to important concepts such as lean manufacturing and agile supply chains. Collaboration and information flows then has led managers to realise that information sharing can be a positive sum game, especially if this information is related to real-time consumer demand data at the most downstream point of the supply chain. And this has been spurred on by some technological advancements such as electronic data interchange, efficient customer response, enterprise resource planning, etc. The financial flows in the supply chain have been significantly ignored and neglected. Now, of course, supply chain management has become a strategic business function in recent years, and corporate finance and business finance has always been important. But linking those two areas is something that's been ignored. Working capital. So working capital, collaboration to improve working capital is the essence of supply chain finance. A high investment in inventory and traditional engagement in credit sales and credit purchases links working capital management at the firm level to that of our supply chain partners. And collaboration to improve working capital management in the supply chain is the essence of supply chain finance. So some of the academics in recent years, Silvestro and Estrada, have highlighted the importance of integrating the financial supply chain with the material and information supply chains. And they also note the lack of research into the financial supply chain. And this is an area that we hope to make some contribution to. Another paper then from Moore and Basu then highlights 9 challenges of supply chain finance, as well as noting knock-on effects of a financially weak supply chain member on the rest of the supply chain. So we have a vested interest in financial strength of our supply chain partners, and so there is a role for collaboration in there. So as I said, our working title is Evaluating the Potential for Collaborative Approaches to Working Capital Management to Strengthen Supply Chain Performance. So we wanted to look at some of that academic theory, but also, of course, we want to document current practice in the area. So who are these practitioners then, or the collaborators? We've identified 3 stakeholder groups. These are financial service providers, manufacturing companies, and logistics services providers. We want to assess their attitudes towards supply chain collaboration and financial collaboration and document their current practices in the area. From there we want to present to them our findings and discuss the proposals with them for validation. So these collaborators then, as I said, are financial service providers, manufacturing companies and logistics service providers. We want to talk to financial service providers because they're the ones who develop and provide the financial products, obviously. So we wanted to find out how are those products developed and what level of engagement there is with clients in developing such products. Manufacturing companies then have a typically high investment in 4 types of inventory, as well as traditional engagement in credit selling and credit purchasing, which, as I said, links working capital management at the firm level to that of our supply chain partners. Logistics service providers. Now, that term is something of a bone of contention amongst these companies because categorisation is an issue there, but we've used this term to govern all third-party transport companies, logistics companies and supply chain management companies. We want to talk to them because they are natural supply chain facilitators and collaborators. They're there to create optimizations in supply chain flows. As well as that, some of these companies are moving towards a more complete end-to-end supply chain service, as well as being, while being some of these companies being cash rich, there might be a financial piece to contribute there. Although some of my graphics I don't seem to be working at the moment. From there we were able to move on to identify what you might call collaborative companies or existing supply chain finance users, as well as identifying the key knowledge gatekeepers within each company. At the investigative stage, first of all, involved a series of interviews with representatives of each of our group. So this allowed us to get an insight into each of the individual companies, but also insights into the career experiences of the people we were talking to. They were able to highlight their desires for supply chain management and supply chain finance, as well as highlight the deficiencies they can see and identify any opportunities they can see for future collaboration. From there we went on to analyse these interviews with a view to identifying common themes and developing proposals, possibly some conceptual models of supply chain finance, which we did too. These findings and models were then presented in focus groups there, which involved representatives from each of our groups sitting in a round table discussion. That way we could present our findings to them for validation, present our models to them for validation, and we could benefit from what we call the wisdom of the crowd, or a collective reasoning process. So the findings then. But 2/3 of our financial service providers say they take a collaborative approach to meeting the needs of the individual client, but 3/4 agree that packages can be tailored to the needs of the individual client. You might say that these are abstract statements, but they do show a positive sentiment towards client collaboration, and the issue was pressed further at the interview stage. For the manufacturer survey then, it seems supply chain financing tools such as reverse factoring were the least used amongst manufacturers and the least commonly available amongst financial service providers. And there might be a number of reasons for this. That might include that the banks, the international corporate banks that are really engaging with supply chain finance tend to only have one branch office in the IBC in Dublin, while the nationally dispersed or indigenous banks aren't the ones that are engaging with supply chain finance. But 2/3 of these manufacturing companies say they are open to collaborating with customers or suppliers in order to assist their working capital and cash flow needs, while 3/4 of them, or a little more, are open to collaborating with those customers and suppliers in order to assist their own working capital and cash flow needs. They might again say these are abstract statements, but they do show a positive sentiment towards financial collaboration in the supply chain, and the issues were pressed further at the interview stage. And from the interviews, financial service providers focusing on large corporates are more inclined to offer supply chain finance than the other banks. The primary reason for this is that the large amounts of money that need to be dealt with in order to make a supply chain finance project worthwhile. Factors affecting financial service providers' decision to offer new services such as supply chain finance, of course, depend on the return on investment from the bank. Is it going to be worth the regulatory hassle in order to get a new financial product approved? Is it going to be worth the amount of man hours that will require, especially in relation to supply chain finance, which requires the onboarding of suppliers into the program, and that responsibility falls at the bank in that case. As well as that, there are apprehensions about becoming too involved in a particular market. And this might be a residual effect of bank involvement in the property sector immediately before the crash. The factors affecting manufacturers' decisions to engage in supply chain finance again depend on return on investment for the manufacturer in question. Is there enough cash available to invest in the facility fee for such a project? And are the working capital management improvements going to be worth it in the end? Are the margins wide enough, or are they too tight to introduce such a project? So from the focus group, well, all the reading on supply chain management and supply chain collaboration has given us a lens to look through that might be slightly biased and thinking that collaboration is the way to go and everybody's engaging with it. But it turns out that power and dominance are still leveraged, and this is still the way business is done at the moment. However, this leverage isn't necessarily a bad thing, as it is now being used in supply chain finance products to attract better lending rates to one suppliers. Collaboration is then a key driver behind supply chain finance engagement. But as I say, portfolio-based strategies are very important. That is to say, not all suppliers are able to come into this program. Not everybody is welcome. It's really the key suppliers that you want to grow with, and you're willing to invest in, that you offer this project to. But there are various opportunities for financial collaboration in supply chain between different parties, from manufacturer to manufacturer, or between our three stakeholder groups collectively. Now, opportunities for logistics service providers include taking title to the goods they handle so they're not kept on the balance sheets of the client, financing those goods between points in order to free up cash for the clients. This might come in the form of an inventory storage sale and buyback format where the inventory is taken off the balance sheet of the client, the cash is freed up and it's sold back with a margin on a piecemeal basis. Again, those companies offering those products might be defined because of categorization issues. For example, transport companies are, what are really transport companies are calling themselves 3PL companies, and what are really 3PL companies are calling themselves supply chain management companies to a large extent. So to sum up then, there is an openness in principle to financial collaboration. Financial service providers and logistics service providers are in a position to collaborate to improve working capital flows in the supply chain. There are very interesting insights coming from the interviews and from the focus groups. So the study has been successful to some extent. And there is some confirmation of our early findings from the focus groups, but there has been further emphasis placed on power and dominance in relationships. Finally then, collaborative approaches to working capital management already exist, but decisions are being made, of course, based on return on investment and service capability of the providers. There is a conceptual adoption of these ideas only apparent amongst financial service providers, and that's lacking amongst manufacturers and amongst logistics service providers to a great extent. A focus on short-term financial metrics is going to hamper the adoption of supply chain finance tools and techniques amongst manufacturers because of the effect on quarterly metrics. The effect on supply chain performance remains to be seen, however, but I would imagine it would involve case studies of financial key performance indicators changing over time during the implementation of the supply chain finance program. But I think this will be a task for a future research project. So give you some light bedtime reading there if anybody wants to follow up on some of the subject matter. But we are officially finished collecting data, but if anybody was interested in participating or representing their company within the study, we are delighted to hear from you. If you want to contact myself or the program supervisor, Colm Beckett, we definitely welcome on board. So that concludes my talk.